Alex Kidd in Miracle World is a 2D platform launched for the Sega Master System in 1986. The game was meant to be the Sega Master System's flagship franchise during the console's early years, and Alex Kidd became Sega's mascot and the company's answer to Mario. Of course, by now, we all know Alex wasn't quite as popular as Sega expected, as they eventually replaced him with Sonic during the 16-bit days. In my opinion, the reason for this is that the Alex Kidd games were a roller coaster in terms of quality, with titles ranging anywhere from great to mediocre to even terrible. But it's best if I leave that analysis for another video. Thankfully, Alex Kidd in Miracle World for the Master System is one of the good ones. The game comes in a Master System. Yeah, I don't own a cartridge of this game, instead it's embedded into my Master System. So, moving on. Alex Kidd in Miracle World starts out as your typical platformer. Alex can jump, punch his enemies, and he'll die if he's hit even once. And yes, that applies to even when you're using power-ups. Which meant I usually found myself navigating through the levels a lot more defensively, and generally avoiding some of the stronger enemies. This happened especially in the underwater stages, because enemies aren't knocked back when you hit them. So, if they don't die in one hit, you can easily run the risk of being killed after attacking them as they're still charging at you. The game has you play through a set path of levels, but it offers a surprising amount of freedom of movement. On the first level, for example, you start on a mountain and need to drop down until you reach a body of water. Once that happens, Alex Kidd starts swimming and the controls change radically. This is pretty impressive if you consider that during this time, most platformers had running levels or swimming levels, not both mixed into one. And sure, Super Mario 3 also mixed several gameplay styles on the same level, but that game was launched 2 years after Alex Kidd in Miracle World. In fact, a lot of elements found in Alex Kidd in Miracle World remind me of Super Mario 3, but I'll get to that in a bit. The game encourages you to constantly break boxes which reveal money. Money isn't counted towards points though. Instead, you use it on shops to purchase lives, power-ups or vehicles. There are 3 vehicles you can use. The bike, which mows down everything in your path, but is constantly moving forward, making it a little hard to control at times, especially when you need to do precision platforming. Then you have the boat, which works pretty similarly to the bike, only this time you can shoot bullets. But you're still just as likely to find many tricky platform segments here. And finally, you have my favorite, the Pedicopter, which allows you to fly and shoot bullets. When you're in a vehicle, if you're hit just once or crash against an unbreakable platform, you automatically lose the vehicle and are now forced to continue the level on foot. The issue is that to me, the levels always feel like they were made to be traversed either on foot or with vehicles, never both. For example, the first time you go to a shop, if you buy a bike, you automatically equip it and the level is a breeze. But if you make a mistake, it becomes way harder and more tedious than any second level should be. The only exception to this rule are the boat segments, where if you get hit, you get sent to an underwater section and the level changes completely to fit Alex Kidd's swimming skills. Oh, and by the way, the water levels in Alex Kidd in Miracle World are surprisingly awesome. Usually I hate water levels in games, but Alex is really easy to control. He always floats up, and you only need to use the D-pad to swim in whatever direction you want to go. Moreover, Alex can attack while underwater, which makes these sections much more fun. As I mentioned before, you can also buy power-ups at the stores. And the interesting bit here is that you don't automatically equip them. Instead, you can access a menu by pausing the game, and yes, that means having to get up to press the pause button on the console. And then you can select which power-up you want to use. Once you use a power-up, it disappears and needs to be picked up again or repurchased. This adds a new layer of complexity to the levels, as the levels can always be crossed without any power-ups, but they also give you plenty of choices on which power-up to use and when to use it. In fact, with the exception of some vehicle-centered sections, the level design in this game is kind of amazing. The levels were clearly thought out for several gameplay and power-up styles, and even encouraged the player to build their own paths or platforms by destroying blocks. And this is where Alex Kidd in Miracle World reminds me of Super Mario 3. In Super Mario, you can store your power-ups in a menu and save them to when you need them the most. And yet, Alex Kidd in Miracle World has already done this 2 years prior, and it's really well implemented. These power-ups can be used to find alternate paths in levels, making puzzles easier, and they can even be used to skip the last boss altogether. Now that is pretty freaking awesome! What isn't well implemented though are the boss fights. At this point, they're pretty notorious, as most boss fights are just games of rock, paper, scissors. They always make the same choices though, so a little bit of memorization can easily net you a win. Still, having a boss whose chance to win is entirely luck based on your first playthrough isn't what I would call good level design. Luckily, by the time you reach the second boss, you'll have found an item which lets you read minds and know what choice they're going to make ahead of time. Not all bosses are like this though, as you do have more traditional encounters. But even those aren't particularly great. You have a bull who constantly charges at you at faster speeds, but you can easily beat him by just rapidly tapping the punch button. And you have this giant bear who you can easily defeat with the right items. So yeah, the boss design isn't this game's forte. Some people have complained about the game's controls being inverted. That is to say, the punch and run buttons are switched from where you expect them to be. But later revisions like my own switch this around, mirroring Mario controls. Another change these later revisions made was changing the rice balls into hamburgers. I'm just surprised they didn't change them into donuts though. Nothing beats a jelly-filled donut. Overall, Alex Kidd in Miracle World is still a great game. It was meant to be Sega's answer to Mario, and even though it wasn't as successful, it was still an awesome platformer that went its own way instead of trying to copy Nintendo's Plumber. The action and level design is incredibly varied, suiting several gameplay styles, and the use of optional vehicles was pretty uncommon for 8-bit games. But most impressive of all is the menu where you can store your power-ups and use them when you feel the need, a feature which ironically would later be used by Mario. The game is starting to get pretty expensive, but thankfully it can also be found on several Master System models. Still, if you manage to find a copy of this game for cheap, be sure to pick it up, you won't regret it. Hey everyone, thank you for watching SteakKids Retro Corner. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe and share this video. All that fun social media stuff. And be sure to hit that notification bell icon to know when a new video is out. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. Bye!